Hello everyone, welcome back to the Guddi Life, where life is good and everything is great. And if you're new to my channel, I am Dr. Guddi, and welcome. You are here in the right time. Today's video, I am doing an introduction of myself. So it's all about the Guddi Life and who I am as a person. I know many of you who have been watching my past videos, you have been seeing videos on building healthy habits, traveling, fitness, and you may have many questions. Where's she going with all these different topics? So I thought this is a great time for me to do an intro of myself, let you guys know a little bit about who I am, and that might also help to explain a lot more on why I talk about a variety of different topics. So a lot of time I get asked these questions. Are you Middle Eastern? Are you Indian? Are you Asian? All good choices. So I wanted to start off by talking about my heritage. So way back and about 150 years ago, when the British was ruling India, what they did was they told the folks there that they can take them somewhere to work for a day and they'll make double the money they're making right now. So a lot of the people left their family from across all different states in India, got on the ship to go make more money, to go find a better job. But after weeks and months, they realized they weren't getting anywhere. And what happened was the Britishers took them to different continents. And one of those continents was South America, and one of that country was Guyana. So what they did, they took a male and a female, they changed their name, they put them together as a married couple and put them in a small room known as a logie, and that's where they had to spend the rest of their lives working as indentured laborers. Now, I find the word indentured laborers as a glamorized word for slavery, because these people were working on the cotton plantation, rice plantation, sugar plantation. And when they got there, there was many other people, like Africans were there, Portuguese were there. There was different ethnicity that was already a part of Guyana. So a lot of the culture itself went away, because most of you know India is a very big country and they have different language, different caste system. And since these people were more individually based, they didn't get to keep that with them. So in Guyana, they end up merging and becoming Indians. And a lot of things kind of faded away, like the language and the caste system and things like that is not part of Guyana. But what they did keep was celebrating the festival Holi, Diwali, wearing some of the traditional outfit, and a lot of the conservativeness. And that's where my heritage is from. Now, to make things even more complicated or more interesting, Guyana was a very poor country and everyone was always looking for a better opportunity. And my parents was one of those couples. When they got married, they moved to Suriname, and that's where they had me. So Suriname is a Dutch country, and that's where I spent the first 5 years of my life, growing up thinking that I'm part of the Dutch culture. From there, we moved to Venezuela, which is a Spanish-speaking country, for one more year. And then when I was about 7 years old, we moved back to my parents' home country, which is Guyana. And that's where I lived for the next 16 years of my life before moving over to the US. So if you ask me, I am Indian. In the job checks box here in the US, I have to check Asian. I am Guyanese, I am Surinamese by birth, I am a South American, and if you guys know, Guyana is part of the Caribbean and West Indies. So I am a part of all of that and more, basically. So along with my traveling and my upbringing, I consider myself more of a global citizen. So now, since I moved around so much as a kid, I always felt like a nomadic person where I moved a lot, and hence why I love to travel so much. Moving a lot and moving at that age has taught me how to be very humble, because I was always exposed to people of different culture, different languages, a variety of different things, and I had to learn really fast how to adapt, how to be flexible, how to learn to fit in. And that really kind of became a part of who I am as an adult. I love to travel. I love to meet new people, new culture, try new cuisines. That's why you guys have been seeing so many travel videos recently. By the way, while we're on the topic of travel videos, what travel video would you like to see next? I know all of us are kind of shelter in place right now, but I do still have some videos from some countries that we went to in Africa. There's India, there's Dubai, Mexico. Also, we did a winter wonderland vacation last December. It was a road trip all the way from California straight over to Canada. So if you guys would like to know more about any of those, comment below so I can work on putting those videos together for you guys. So let's talk about my upbringing in South America. What was that like? So when we got back to Guyana, we weren't very well off people. So for a few years, we lived in a house literally made out of zinc. It was a small little space. And where we lived at, there was no water, no electricity, no road, no phone, none of that. Straight up borderline poor, poverty, broke. So that's how we kind of lived for a few years until my parents got themselves together. My mom started her own business. My dad joined the police force, and things turned around a little bit for us. However, growing up like that, still part of society, you feel kind of pushed off for a bit. And along with that, I started my school. And when I started school in Guyana, interestingly, the people speak Creole there, even though they claim the national language is English. Creole is basically a broken version of the British English mixed with a few different dialects here. So that's what they spoke when I went to school. And since I couldn't understand what they were saying, I was completely just failing out and going behind, and that kind of pushed me all the way to the back of the classroom. For example, if there was 35 kids in the classroom, I always came in the 35th place. Now, as a young girl growing up, that can really hurt your self-esteem or your self-confidence and really set you behind. The thing that really held me together was every time I was so embarrassed to take that grade chart home to my parents always made me feel important. My mom and dad always told me, you know, just try to do better next time. It's okay. So they always validate me that you're important, you're seen. And that's kind of what I've hung on to. I always look up to my parents when the world was kind of pushing you down sometimes, especially growing up in a third world country like that, where the teachers, they didn't know any better. Not to their fault at all. We didn't have the facilities and the things to teach them that, hey, there's a language barrier here. There's a lot of differences for a child to why they might be failing behind. So they didn't have all of that knowledge in that time and that generation. So if you didn't know anything, nobody tried to figure out why. They just pushed you to the back and consider you were stupid. And that was kind of a difficult time for me growing up like that. However, with that said, one day I was walking down the street and this white van pulls over, and this lady just jumps out of this white van and she said, hey, would you like to be in a pageant? And I'm like, I don't even know what that is. So she told me about it, and I said, well, you may have to ask my parents about this. So she went back to my house. By the way, kids, if you're watching this video, never ever stand there and talk to somebody that jumps out of a white van. This was just a completely different circumstance, okay? So she came back to my home and she told my parents all about what it was. And the first thing my dad said, if she's going to be in a swimsuit, she's not participating in this thing. The lady confirmed with my dad that during the swimsuit segment, she will not be wearing a swimsuit or being a part of that segment. And he said, fine. Somehow they agreed to it. And I still remember the day before the pageant, we had to go and do a promotion. And we went out to do that promotion. And then I came home a couple hours later. And as we were coming home, I saw my mom and dad at the gate. And my dad had something behind his hands. And I knew something was up. As I make it to the door, my dad started to beat the heck out of me. The promoter was so shocked. The contestants were staring at me. I was so embarrassed. It was the worst time one can ever have as a teenager. And I remember crying, and my dad tell her she won't be in the pageant, she won't be able to participate in this, and they left, and I went to bed crying that night. I don't know how or what my mom said to work a miracle on my dad, but she convinced him somehow to let me participate. And I did get to participate the next day. And not only did I participate and won. I don't remember how it all went down, but what I remember was the promoter leaning in, shaking my hands, whispering in my ear, after last night, you so deserve this. And that's when things kind of changed up a little bit for me. Like going back to school, all the teachers started to show a lot of respect. All the kids, my peers, were looking at me differently. And automatically, I started to perform and do better. Now, if you have watched my previous videos, you guys know I preach a lot on self-esteem is solely on you. But I always consider our teenagers a very vulnerable population, because during that part of their lives, whatever someone say to them, how we express ourselves to them, they tend to take that sometime and build it as a part of their identity. So when these teachers were bashing on me, or people were making me feel stupid and dumb, that's exactly how I kind of felt at that age, because I was so vulnerable. And with just a change like that, when everybody started to treat me much more nicer and more friendlier, everything started to change rapidly. My grades started going up. Everything changed. So it's really, really important when you see that I'm going to be doing some of my videos, I really cheer for the underdogs, and I really go for those kids. And I'm always preaching a lot about kids and making sure we're very much so passing positive feedbacks and compliments to them, especially meaning it when we say it, is very, very important. Now, you guys heard me talk about my dad giving me a good old beating. So if you're from a third world country, or basically anyone, depending on how conservative your family was, a good old beating was a thing. Corporal punishment was very normal in my generation. That's what my parents was taught. That's what they thought would be the best thing to help to train their kids, I guess, in the most appropriate way. And I will tell you why I disagree with this. I do not believe in corporal punishment whatsoever, because whatever my parents tried to prevent me, the mistakes and the things they were trying to prevent me from doing, I actually recreated all those mistakes later on in my life regardless. So this is why I say corporal punishment, I do not agree with it, but I also don't hold my parents accountable because that's what they believe was going to help me, and that's what they thought was needed in that country, in that time, in that place, in that environment that we grew up in. That's what they believed in. I remember having a skipping rope, and it was a blue rope. It served dual purposes. I skipped with it, and my dad used it to beat the heck out of me when it was needed. It was just how it was then. I actually don't hold, let me say this before moving forward, I don't hold anyone that any of the bad things, even the way the teachers were, or all the adversity that I've gone through in life, I am in a part and a place in my life now where I take responsibility for myself, and I'm actually truly thankful that I did went through those things. So I am much more appreciative of life. However, it doesn't always have to be like that. We can change those things and people can still be appreciative of life. We don't always have to use those techniques. Especially now, we shouldn't be using those techniques. So that's a little bit about growing up in Guyana and what it was like, poor, not having a good educational background, and how things turned around when I got into modeling. So another thing I need to tell you guys about growing up in Guyana was, I mentioned it is still a bit of a conservative country, and for female, especially the Indian population there, because there's other ethnicity there too, they had a little bit more extreme pressure on them. So as soon as they graduate high school, their choice was you get married. And what I noticed really fast when I was in school was, for someone to have a successful life beside getting married, she had to be light-skinned, soft-spoken, and educated. And I was not fitting any of those categories growing up. I was not light-skinned. I was definitely not soft-spoken, and I was definitely not the smartest one of the bunch. And I must tell you, I am so happy I have this platform today, because for any young girls, if you're watching me and you're from the Caribbean, or you're from India, or any other country, even America, you know, and you're living in a situation where you can't use your voice, or you're embarrassed of those things, those can be your strength. Today, I am so thankful for having a loud voice and being able to speak, because I can speak up and I can represent for myself, for women out there who's not able to speak up. So it turned out to be, even though it was a weakness in that category, it turned out to be good for me now. Okay, now this is not a sad story. I want to tell you guys this. As I'm telling you this, I want you to know there's a happy ending to it. I'm sitting here today, I'm sharing my story with you. There is a successful outcome to everything, for if that's what you want for yourself. You have to work towards it. It just doesn't come to you like that. So those were the 3 categories for female to have a good life or to have a good husband. I knew I didn't want to get married at 16 years of age, and that was not going to happen. So since things were turning around, by the time I was 14, I started to have better grades, I started to have more friends and things like that. I told my parents I wanted to get a better education, because my dad had always preached, when I would take those grade charts home to him, he would tell me numerous stories of people who got out of poverty from getting a better education. So basically, we have family in the US, so my parents moved to the US so I can have that opportunity. So at 16 years of age, we moved here to the US after I graduated high school. I didn't have to get married, which was a good thing. However, when we came here, we moved to the projects. Now, if you're an American, you know the projects is also known as the PJ. It's a low-income place for poor family, basically poverty borderline in the United States too. And remember when I told you guys how I grew up, where I grew up in a house made out of zinc, and there was no roads, no electricity, no phones. So for me, when we came here and we moved to the projects, that was like an upgrade. In the projects, I had a good apartment, food, clothes, light, water, electricity, a car, TVs, not just TV. So not just one TV. So for me, that was like an upgrade. However, I understand the situation because I lived there for 10 years, and you can see the difference from living in the projects to people who have a better lifestyle. So I do understand that's the poverty line or being broke here in the United States. But it was just very interesting to compare what poverty in a third world country is in comparison to being in America in poverty. So that's where I spend the next 10 years of my life, and I learned a lot there too. So a lot of times when you guys see me do some of my speeches, whether it's something motivational or somewhere we went to, you see a little bit more of me, who I am now. But that doesn't mean there's not a third world little girl within me. There's not a project person within me. Once in a while you will see those voice or those languages kind of just pop out at you. Just know that's where I'm from. That's how I grew up. I spent 10 years growing up there. But what had happened since I was a teen, I was 16 moving over to getting into adulthood. And when we came here, my parents was still pretty conservative and strict. My dad was very strict. Like, he was like, you had to be home before 6 o'clock. And the thing is that my work was done at 5:30, so I had to go to school from 6 to 9. So it became a real conflict, and we even started to bump heads more. And that caused me to run away from home. And that's what I talked about earlier, corporal punishment, and I don't agree with it. Because everything that they tried to prevent me from doing, I did it. You know, I ran away from home. I got involved in the wrong types of friendship. I got into the wrong types of relationships where they were abuse, you name it. There's 4 types of abuse, and I've gone through each one of them. Be it whether I was a witness of it or I was a part of it. And I will talk more about those another time, more detailed in another video. But I just wanted to share that, you know, throughout, I'm in my 30s now, but especially growing up, it was difficult. And by getting into my early 20s, it even got more hard. And part of that is because of the choices and the things we are taught. So since my parents were a bit strict, I ran away and I did all these dumb and stupid things. And that didn't make matters any better for me. And then all of a sudden, after a few years, it hit me. Why did I come to the US? I came here to get a better education. Now, for a lot of you young women out there, and I'm speaking, it could be any young girls, but I'm just talking particularly for me, my ethnicity being Indian. When we leave home and when we do certain things, two of the things our family teach us is shame and guilt. And we always feel shame and guilt to go back or to do something different because we are like, oh, we made this choice, we have to live with it. Absolutely not. You do not have to live with any crappy choice you make. You can change your life and your decisions anytime. And that's what I decided to do after a few years of living in crap. I said, no way. I went back to my parents and I told them, can I move back in with you guys? I wanted to do some stuff different. And lo and behold, my parents was there with open arms and they were like, welcome, come back, bring your stuff. And I moved back in with my parents. And I remember that night, I overheard my mom telling my dad, you're going to have to change up a lot of things and a lot of way and how you speak to her. You cannot do the same thing anymore. Because of that, that's why she did all these things. And that was a huge turning point for us and my family relationship in particularly with my parents. The next day when we got up, and since that day, things have been so different. My dad has kind of lay off, became a very different person. There was no such thing as huge arguments or conflicts. And that really changed for me. And the fact actually is, the minute he stopped pressuring me to not do this, not do that, I didn't care about doing those things. I didn't care about going out. I didn't care about being with certain groups of people anymore because he wasn't pushing me, so I didn't feel the need to do it. And this is why I said I disagree with corporal punishment or being too strict or too overbearing on your kids, because the minute you lean off, kids really don't care. What happened is it really strikes a teenager curiosity when you say no. They want to know why. Why should I not do it? And then they want to go and try it. So I'm just sharing this because you will see when I'm doing more parental videos or videos on teenagers where I talk more about these topics in depth. Just giving you a little bit brief intro of myself and how all my videos kind of come about. So things started to turn around for me. I never let go of my academic background. Even though I was going through all those hardships for those years, I was still going to college. And I kept going to college, and then I realized it was not only about education. There's a whole lot of work that I needed to do for myself. Why did I choose those relationships? Why did I choose those friendships? Why did I get myself into those things? You see, growing up in South America, the things that I was taught, the shame, the guilt, you're not worth anything, the low self-esteem, the low self-confidence, all of it spilled out in different ways that impact the choices I made when I was young. Now, when we're young, we are going to make stupid choices. That is true. That is a part of why those choices were made too. But I always thought, I wonder, how would it have been if I was taught something different? So I started to change those things about myself. I started to work on myself. I really worked on becoming much, much more independent. Something far from what my culture have taught me. Something far from what my family have taught me. I really worked on being my own individual me. Who I was as a person. I mean, making sure I have that dream career, working towards that dream career, being able to stand on my own feet, not needing someone else to fulfill me, that I can fulfill myself. That means I started traveling on my own. I started doing all stuff on my own and just taking care of me. And that's when I started to grow up more. I started to feel more confidence. My self-esteem started to get more higher. And through doing these things is where I started to feel like I am more myself and who I want to be as I let go of the past me, the girl who grew up in Guyana, the girl who grew up with low self-esteem, the girl who grew up with a poor academic background, the girl who thought she was good for nothing. You know, once in a while, those self-doubt will still spark out. But I remember till now how much I worked and how many years I spent on myself to build myself up. So I'm no longer that. It was a part of my upbringing and it taught me a lot. It taught me how much more important it is to become strong and independent, especially if you want to survive in this world today, as a female or as a human in general. So since I started my YouTube channel and I have been doing a lot of growing many years also, I was thinking, how have I gotten to the spot where I am today? Now I am truly happily married to a great individual, a great guy who respects me. I respect him. He loves me. I love him. How did I get that? How did I find that person? You know, or I have my dream career of where I'm helping people. I have the degree. I have graduated from a girl who was getting 35th place. I graduated with a damn near close 4.0 summa cum laude in my doctoral program. How did I move from these things to these things? What did I do? And I started to think about it, and that's what I wanted to share with you guys, how you can make changes with certain tweaks here and there. How did somebody move from poverty, uneducated, stupid, low self-esteem, horrible relationship, to high self-esteem, educated, career-oriented, good relationship, good friends, good family? How do you make this shift within a few years? And I started to think about it. What was I doing in this gap here where this change happened? And I realized every time I was growing a bit, I was really doing and focusing on 6 areas. And a couple of those areas I have already told you guys about, and which I'll be talking a lot more about each areas in different videos. So let's talk about one of the areas I have talked about. For example, being active. You guys notice if you've watched my previous video, if you follow me on Instagram, and if you're not, you should. You should follow me on Instagram because that's where I do a lot more daily posting on what I do and what life is like overall. So I talk a lot about physical fitness, being active. What I noticed was every time I'm kind of having a blur moment, I'm feeling frustrated, I have a headache, I get up, I go run for 2 miles, and I start getting clarity right away. I start having better decision making opportunities from working out, from exercising. It helps to give me more clarity. So I'm huge on being physically active, because I felt like that was a huge part in this growth for me to work on myself. A next part that I talk about a lot is your social self, your social environment. Who are you hanging out with? Who are you spending time with? There will come a time in our life where we're going to have to let go of those naysayers, those people who don't appreciate you, who don't see your goals, who don't see your dreams. And it's not only about seeing your goals and dreams. There's just some downright Debbie Downers out there, some real negative people. And those people can be your closest family members or your good friends. And learning to let go of them hurts a lot, but it's needed. It's vital. It's important to your self-growth. So that's one of the areas I also talk about, is because for me, I believe when we start letting go of these negative people, or this is what my experience was, when I start letting go of the negative relationship, the negative people, the things that just wasn't worth it in my life, I opened up a door for brand new positive possibilities where really fantastic and phenomenal people started to come into my life. And as those people started to come into my life, my growth went up, my self-esteem went up more also. I started to get more, my vision also started to grow, because the right type of company was in my life, the right type of people was in my life, the right relationship came into my life. Like I said, I met my amazing and phenomenal husband. But these things didn't happen like that. I did have to learn from my past. I had to go through those things to learn appreciation. I had to learn to let go of certain things, people, to get better individuals in my life and for me to also become the better version of myself. So being physically active, social, knowing your social environment and who's around you and who you want to be part of your life, that's 2 out of the 6 areas that I have talked about. Another one that I talk about a lot is traveling. For me, it may not be the case for everybody, but for me, traveling is really a huge part of my growth because I like to learn about people, I like to meet people, and one way for me to get to do that is through traveling. So traveling is another huge part of my growth. Getting to travel and learn about different countries, different places, different people is very important to my upbringing also. So I don't want to give it all out about these 6 areas, but throughout, keep watching my YouTube channel. I'll be talking about all 6 areas of self-growth and how it helped me move from this half of my life all the way to where I am today. So I hope this video, it's not a video where I talked about everything, but hopefully you got a little bit more insight on me, where I was from, where I have gotten to, and how the steps that I will be taking, the steps that I took to get there, that I'll be sharing with you guys in the future. So I hope you got to know me a little bit more. But before I let you guys go, I want to talk about a couple of other things. First of all, I am very aware of some of my grammatical mistakes. Like for example, I always drop off the S from some of my words. I am really aware of that, guys. I'm really trying to correct these mistakes. Please forgive me and understand English is not my first language, but don't worry so much about the mistakes that I am making because I am really focused on it and I'm really trying to change it too. Just listen to the message that I'm sending. The second thing that I wanted to talk about was sponsorship. I don't know about you, but for me, I dislike when I'm watching a YouTuber and all of a sudden they start bringing on all these sponsorship where they start talking about products that's $1,000 or they only used it for 2 weeks. I'm like, what's going on here? And to each their own, because everybody has a different path in life. Some people start a YouTube channel to make money or whatever it is. This YouTube channel is not for that. It's solely about growth and just getting to know each other and you getting to know a little bit about me, and hopefully you can gain something from it. And if you do see me talking about something or if there is a sponsorship here, it is definitely about something that I believe in. So for example, there will be times where I'm doing videos on my fitness and what I eat in a day, and I will be talking about those things. But that's who I am. That's what I've been eating for the past many, many years. You'll never see me pop up here and just talk about, oh, I tried this product for 2 weeks. You should try it. That's not me. It's not what I'm about. So you don't have to worry about getting duped into any of those kinds of a thing. If I talk about something, it's something that I have been using for many, many years. If you want to try it, try it. If you don't want to, don't. Okay? So that's my little spiel on sponsorship. I hope you guys like this video. And I hope you tune in next week because in the next few weeks I'll be talking more about current topics that's going on and what we can be doing to make some self-improvement in ourselves. So don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, share, and comment button below. And I'll see you all in the next video. Bye for now.